Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
In the US, indigenous issues such as the economy, land grabbing, and healthcare receive little or no coverage in the media. This is primarily because reporters don't find these stories particularly important. Tristan Ahtone, editor-at-large at Grist, believes that the easiest way to address this problem is to hire indigenous journalists to work in newsrooms. If that is not possible, news organizations can collaborate and work with indigenous reporters at other outlets. There are many ways to safeguard journalism and ensure that the best work possible is being done.
My name is Tristan Ahtone. I'm a member of the Kiowa tribe. I'm editor-at-large at Grist, which is an environmental, climate-focused nonprofit news outlet. And I run the Indigenous Affairs desk at Grist with a handful of reporters covering Indigenous affairs issues in the U.S. and around the world. In the U.S., there are a number of things that impact Indigenous peoples, everything from the economy to land-based to healthcare. It's a fairly wide mix of things that impact Indigenous communities. But I think in all cases, whether or not it's poor funding for the Indian Health Service or it's power sharing when it comes to protecting lands, all of it receives little to no coverage, I think, in the United States, primarily because I think reporters don't find those stories particularly important. There's definitely a big gap in terms of from editors who will often ask, well, why should we be covering this? Why is this an issue that will impact our readers in other parts of the country? More or less what they're asking, I think, usually is how does an Indigenous story impact a non-Indigenous person? I think that's obviously a very wrong approach when it comes to journalism. That you're trying to fit somebody else's story into your worldview is a huge problem that I think we deal with in terms of the media ecosystem in the U.S. And it's something that shows no signs of going away anytime soon. A number of places have started Indigenous affairs desks to deal with this problem, but most of them are at small outlets or nonprofit outlets or public radio stations. We don't see this at large organizations or mainstream organizations. Again, our stories are not relevant to their audiences, which again raises a question about who their audience is and what exactly they're thinking constitutes good reporting and journalism for the general public or the general good. Better coverage, the easiest thing to do is hire Indigenous people to work in a newsroom. Obviously, there's a lot of demand on bringing Indigenous people into newsrooms, which can make things difficult in hiring. But if you can't hire an Indigenous journalist, you can collaborate and work with other Indigenous reporters at other news outlets. There are many, many ways that you can safeguard your work and safeguard your journalism and make sure that you're doing the best work possible. And usually that is working with Indigenous people. So ideally you're hiring Indigenous reporters, photographers, and editors. And in a pinch, it's working with Indigenous photographers and editors at other Indigenous outlets or other Indigenous affairs desks that can provide the cultural competency and the abilities to do good work in this area.
Or is it only the goal?
For more information on Indigenous rights, visit www.cs.org/rights. And also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook.
Your children remember, our future remember. Your children remember Mother Nature.